I should probably address something. Yes, that is the TARDIS grind sound effect from Doctor Who. As said, Megaranger had a slashed budget from prior years' poor viewership, so needed to cut costs, shown here by licensing scoring from other studios, and keeping their own original compositions to a minimum. This also explains why a lot of their sets look particularly cheap, because they are. I can't even imagine what the actors were being paid, as, much like Saban, Toei is notorious for paying their actors and other creative talent below livable wages for their time when they can get away with it. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I made more in a month working part-time at minimum wage than Fumika Shimizu was revealed to have been given when she was on Kamen Rider 4s. Tori Matsuzaka from Shinkenger also has an infamous interview which revealed that all throughout Shinkenger's production, he subsisted on solely water as he could not afford to eat. And those were both series that made ridiculous amounts of money for Toei. Toei is terrible about paying their talent. I'm also surprised that despite its straits, they didn't seem to skimp on the details for the various costumes for the show when they could have been more simplistic. Nor did Toei and Bandai, as they're the ones who licensed toy rights from Toei, make Megaranger toyetic with its arsenal to try and offset costs, which came off as rather Spartan, and what they did have ended up well integrated to the stories of the show. Granted, I appreciate the restraint, as my view on this kind of thing is the quality of the show takes precedent over what they can try and sell us, and that is even with the stash of collectibles I have set up behind me, as a good show is a better advertisement for merchandise that may or may not exist, than a show that is all about shoving merchandise down our throats, as you're more likely to collect things from shows that you liked than ones that were just all about selling the toys. The latter having been constantly shown to backfire over the years, even with bigger franchises. I just feel thinking of it as solely about nothing but toy sales sells the efforts of everyone involved in such far short, especially since every show ever does it. And information about sales is more indicative of the reception of a series. Anyways, in this episode, Yugan points out the major flaw in the team right now is, well, their teamwork. It's something that's only going to improve with time, so a plan to divide them and pick at least one of them off would be best executed sooner rather than later. So it targets Kenta because, well, these were the days before every Red Ranger had to be super special awesome to the detriment of the rest of the cast. Anyways, Kenta, as established, is a fool. He's impulsive and prefers to go off on his own, completely missing that there's others with him, meaning it's ridiculously easy for him to be lured into a trap despite the warnings of the others. This divide between them can best be explained as, well, the other four are long-standing friends, while Kent has never really had anyone around him for long, thus only needed to focus on himself and what matters to him. And being a Megaranger has gone to his head, taking pride he was chosen for it, and wanting to prove he's not a slacker towards their cause. See, in other series, Go Busters, ToQger, and especially Ninja and Q-Ranger, this thing would be left alone and end up working against the show as it festers in the back of everyone's mind. Sentai are teams. It is supposed to be about the team. The red may have something special, but when it overshadows the rest, they detract from the elements that make it enjoyable. Here, Kenta's getting the crap beat out of him to teach him he can't do this alone. The punctuating point of that being, when the others manage to rescue him, Koichiro is injured while Kenta tries to keep on fighting. Because things are always deadly serious when the helmets get broken. Unless it's Go Busters, where it happens with excessive regularity. And unlike later series that by failing to do this utterly and permanently fuck up their series, the others appropriately chastise him for his major screw-up. Yes! And I would like for more idiot Sentai Reds to acknowledge that! This is why it's good to address and work to correct this now, before anyone is put in a situation which would have them die. As well, Kenta after this is still impulsive and ends up fighting alone instead of with the team, such as is showcased right after this when he calls Uganda out alone in an attempt to atone for the injuries Koichiro suffered, he actually shows guilt from his actions causing harm or suffering to others, becomes more aware of his flaw and how much he needs them, thus curbing this character flaw and leaving him more mature as a result, which more modern series have repeatedly failed to depict as they prefer to just always make the red right when everything else says they should be wrong. What I think is the highlight of this is the beginning of Kubota's backstory with Heinler, who in the flashback was known as Samejima, relating to the teen that his friend's obsession with proving himself right and the world wrong led him to rejecting others, and ended up destroying him. And it isn't too dissimilar to how Kenta's beginning to act. And he takes this to heart when the team back him up despite screwing up again, and apologizes, showing his appreciation later for them putting up with him by getting refreshments for the rest as they wrap the story with a study session, because exams don't take themselves. But from the encounter in this episode, Ugand is heavily damaged, Heinler regenerating him with far greater power in episode 9. So much power, he'll have a very difficult time controlling it for some time. This episode's main focus is on Chisato and Kenta encountering a girl trying to swipe CDs with a certain bat marking on them. The girl, Psycho Minami, no relation, happens to be an old friend of Kenta's, which isn't exactly the most positive thing in their minds due to her shown actions and attitude, especially as she's been shoplifting the CDs to get them out of circulation. Why? Well, that's due to Bat Najire, which can use sound waves to drive people straight up crazy. Psycho having experienced the effect firsthand when one of her friends was afflicted. The Megarangers don't realize such until Koichiro listens to one of them and goes berserk. But due to this, Kubota and INET have a sample of the transmission with which to produce a counter song.
No, really! This is a real phenomena. By matching a sound wave with the exact opposite frequency, you create enough noise in its transmission to completely cancel it out. It's actually really cool to experience, especially with me and my sound sensitivity.
But the plan does not die just because they got rid of the first bat, for, as I've mentioned, the plans are all experiments. And using the data accumulated by the first bat kaijin, a second is made with assistants, a series of androids that can transmit a murder sound wave that is attuned to the death note.
No, not that death note.
However, one of these androids is damaged in a vehicle accident, her active memory being wiped, and then encountering Shun. Shun, well, it's the anniversary of his mother's death, and I realize I review too many things that use this plot device to inform a main character. This leads into the expected cliche of the android looking strikingly similar to his mother, made worse by her also having a musical inclination of a similar form. So when Neobat Nijire comes a-looking for the errant musical bot, Shun is all for defending her from him, their interaction awakening a spark of, for lack of a better term, humanity, and ends up assisting in negating the death note when the kaijin uses it to try and kill the team, at the cost of her existence. Shun does not take it well, to say the least, being the one to dismantle the bats. Episode 11 is the first one to focus on Chisato, and it's kind of sad it took that long, as the others all got at least one character-focused episode before this, though she played a major supporting role in 2 before.
That and Chisato is the best character in this show, bar none.
Chisato's a talented photographer, hoping, like Shun, that she can turn her passion into a career. She later on mentions that such would most likely occur from becoming a reporter, though it's unknown if she actually becomes one later to my knowledge. This plays into the episode, as Chisato encounters and befriends a younger girl named Ruri while out on one of her trips to take snapshots of the world around her. Ruri becomes tangled in one of Shiburena's schemes to convert children into mutant roses, and I have no idea why she would want to do that.
Maybe she wanted Biollante to have offspring other than Space Godzilla.
But the team is only made aware of the plot thanks to Chisato being concerned for the girl when she fails to meet up with her. Ruri manages to resist the brainwashing that precedes the mutation process and runs. It makes sense if this was supposed to be a stealthy operation, why Shiburena would then try and chase the girl down to keep things secret, but I'd honestly have had her change the location of her scheme if she was compromised. Granted, the Megaranger were already onto her, but as she's not aware of their civilian forms, that is also forgivable. But instead, she disguises herself as Chisato to try and get close, only for Chisato to show up. She then summons Rose Tentacles in attack mode.
So that's where Aki Izayoi got that trait from.
All hail the Black Rose! The rest of the team aren't doing well against Rose Najire either, as it's managing to regenerate all the wounds they inflict. This is because the kaijin has had its life linked to that of Shiburena, who in fact created the monster from her own cells. One wonders how a gynoid has DNA, but maybe she possesses an outer organic shell, or something. This is, however, something that results in a point of infamy. Shibarena casting an illusion on Chisato after she transforms to result in, well, a giant mega yellow stomping around Tokyo. I'd comment on the amount of people looking up her skirt in this delusion, but then I remembered that a bunch of the yellow Sentai suit actors are guys. In this case, it was Yuichi Hachisuka. This sequence really does not make a lick of sense, one of a few in this show, and Chisato quickly snaps out of it. But as the battle continues, she reveals her blade arm skill as the team figure out the life force connection between the two, and the destruction of the rose she carried severs their link. Episode 12 introduces the most consistent recurring character in the show, the team's homeroom teacher, Ken Oiwa. Oiwa is kind of a sloth, which ticks off Koichiro something fierce, and you can't exactly blame him. The guy is so lazy, he shows up later for class than Kenta does, and Kenta is a slacker! Ironically, this makes him popular with students due to his lax policies and grading. Except my understanding of the Japanese school system is it's designed to systematically weed out who can excel and who can't. Hell, high school is a completely optional pursuit, so those that go obviously have a great deal of pressure on them to do well and move on to greater stuff. But there's a point Oiwa is actually trying to give through example.
試験だけが学生生活じゃないから。気にするな。
In that even if you screw up or need to take some time to relax, you can still do alright in your life and achieve what you want to. Granted, I feel the ASAP is a bit lost on me as I'm a college dropout working for a below livable wage, and feel this guy might be more at home teaching middle or primary school. Then again, I make more in a month than many of Toei's actors. Anyways, monster of the episode. The mole Najire works to retrieve an asteroid fragment which contains massive power, which Uganda plans to use as part of a bomb for widespread destruction, which Heinler doesn't see as very elegant, nor really working towards their bigger plans despite destabilizing industrial and economic pursuits. Fortunately, Koichiro and company were outside due to one of Oiwa's relaxation pursuits, and happens to be nearby as the asteroid touches down. They try to claim it from the mole, but Koichiro still has that failure on his mind, and with his rigid perfectionist personality, it's a distraction interfering with him getting into a battle mindset, which he takes hard as the errors only compound themselves. Fortunately, they do succeed in getting the asteroid away from him, it falling into the hands of Oiwa, who apparently was a science major, trying to analyze the crystalline form it's taken. Koichiro considers withdrawing from school, realizing these failures are simply part of a string of failures, and between school, being a Megaranger, and all the other responsibilities he heaps on himself, such as being his class rep and the man in charge of the Digiken, something's gotta give. Granted, that in and of itself is an overreaction, telling how mentally unbalanced he might be becoming from simply not being able to turn off his brain and relax. Wait, am I still talking about Koichiro? This in turn makes Oiwa worry, as he does care about his students. He just, as I said, encourages them to take a break to avoid what Koichiro is experiencing now. Burnout. And as someone who's become burned out a few times over various things, it's part of the Aesop that connects a bit more solidly. The mole comes after them for the crystal, abducting them when Oiwa eats it. You are going to be regretting that in a day or two, if not sooner, when the Nigerians do unspeakable things to your body to either retrieve it or use it despite it being within you. But this does allow Oiwa to finally get through to Koichiro, when he compares Koichiro to Koichiro. Yeah, he was transformed at the time, and the guy noticed the similar character traits. Though my personal headcanon for later series events is he ends up figuring out their identities, just keeping it secret because it's not his secret to reveal. But getting his groove back helps Koichiro break what's jamming his ability called the others, and they rescue Oiwa before the agony booth the Najira stuffed him into manages to kill him. And in the wrap-up, Koichiro decides he's going to relax by taking the time to make sure Oiwa gets to work on time. Small steps. Though it proves a bit overzealous, as the next episode features a new student named Mayuko Saotome, no relation, which has a bunch of the class, including the male Megarangers, sporting a crush due to her character traits, interests, and abilities that seem to sync up with theirs. Hell, she outclasses Shun's intelligence, which piques even his interest. As you can probably tell, she is relevant to the situation of the week. See, Shibarena's uncovered information of an old project concerning the creation of the ultimate life form. Wait, Black Doom and the Black Arms pass through the solar system?
But we can't even see Space Colony Ark in orbit! Well, this does explain the asteroid from the previous episode. It was clearly a Chaos Emerald.
And yes, Mayuko did work on the project, something she is not exactly proud of, as it ended up costing her the man she loved and was engaged to, as he committed suicide to keep the knowledge he contained from the wrong hands, as it was that dangerous. The remainder of his research kept close because it's the last piece of him she can't yet move on from.
Now, from my words in the past on the subject of suicide, you're probably expecting me to lambaste this. No.
My issue with other series and events' use of the plot device is it was either trivializing such as an empty threat, which would make people indifferent to the real pleas for help, or people making like lemmings because they didn't know how to deal with suddenly obtaining superpowers and did not even try. Superhero Tyson Grand Prix is straight up offensive, as there is no impetus at any point for the character to try and fucking kill herself, and it undermined her entire spiel intended to motivate the hero.
Also note that in these cases of such being used awfully, the ones attempting it are women, when by statistics men are 3 to 7 times more likely to commit suicide than women. Fuck you, Toei.
But here, the information that was in the man's head, the guy named Tanaka, if misused, could spell the doom of the world, and worse, be the cause of severe harm to the people he loved, if someone used them to get him to reveal such for some idiot's mad schemes. Like Dr. Serizawa in the original Godzilla movie, I take the view that once such catastrophically dangerous research becomes leaked, someone would have been after him, so like said man, decided the best way to remove it from the world is remove its source, saving people permanently from this potential danger. It's too bad he left the last of the data to Mayuko, who won't let it be destroyed, which leads her to being tricked into giving it to Shibarena when she assumes the form of Tanaka. And there's some really good acting in the scene that follows where she laments her inability to let her fiancé go, destroy the last thing he was responsible for creating. And thus, the ultimate life form in Megaranger is an energy leech.
Because of course it is.
Granted, it has a massive flaw. If the antenna on top of its head are destroyed, it loses its capabilities. But in battle, Yugon rejoins the fray, showing his new power by wrecking the drill saber to buy the ultimate life form the time to become immensely powerful, only retreating when he comes under fire by the multi-attack rifle, the combination weapon used by all but Kenta that is actually really cool in its simplicity. But I always wanted to see a variation of it that fires with the drill saber as part of the combination.
Can the toy versions even do that? And yes, 3 years after I originally released this review, I'm still asking that question. A variant of the drill saber wasn't released as part of the in-space toy line despite it being advertised, so I'm kinda curious to see if that ever happened.
Anyways, they used their Mega Snipers, their handguns, to destroy the antenna, and in a protracted Megazord fight, they're thus victorious. So much for the prototype for the ultimate life. And of course, in the wrap-up, Mayuko's convinced by these events to try and move on, leaving their lives. But before she does, she gives Kenta one final assignment. To learn what love is.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. No more.
Episode 14 is sadly an annoying kid plot.
As it's been a while since we've had one, I consider a kid plot essentially an idiot plot, but one intended to have a child actor take focus over the leads for no legitimate reason. It's not any episode that features a child actor, but ones whose presence and focus on them detract from the story, especially if there was otherwise something of merit in it, which was drowned out or the role could have been played by literally anyone of any age. It's not that different than my issue with the Idiot Reds, honestly. Same basic complaints.
In this case, the episode is focused on Shinya, a chronic liar that ends up running across a plot by the Kune-Kune forces to infiltrate society by taking human form. And as expected, no one believes him. I'd call out the people around him being idiots, but this is Occam's razor coming into play. A B-plot for it is Miku wondering what she's going to do with her life, as Shun, Chisato, and Koichiro are deep into preparation for their college entrance exams. A year from now. Mainly because her grades, unlike the others, are from hard work, and that's why this is a missed opportunity. Throughout the episode, she ends up showing her own intelligence and resourcefulness in fighting off the Kune-Kunes once she and Kenta uncover their deception. Abilities that could play a part in any career she ends up pursuing, which is pointed out to her in the wrap-up, and it feels wasted because we spend most of the episode on a little brat we never see again, when it could have been focused on her encountering and uncovering this deception using her own talents. To be fair, Shinya's whole lying thing is shown to be based from loneliness and making stuff up so he can be perceived to fit in, so it is nuanced. But as is my common criticism to these kinds of stories, we are not made to care about someone we never see again. And Miku massively needed this developmental episode that was stolen from her. This episode is also the premiere of Kenta's repaired and upgraded Drill Saber, which can now be converted into the Drill Sniper Custom thanks to the programmable skills ability, making it offensively a match for the multi-attack rifle. Also, I continue to be astounded at all the little detailing that went into the fused Kune-Kune body for the giant monster brawl. That's a bit more detailed and elaborate than many of these monsters can get if they're just one-off occurrences, especially with this show's budget issues. Plus, this fused body amalgam would serve as the basis for later series combat men having this exact same ability, as I can't find if any others were able to do that before this. Following that, the Digiken is said to be closed down by their vice principal, named Kurosawa, for neglecting their duties for the school that warrants the club existing, listing off their failures to keep the school's website updated with current news. That's the duties of the newspaper or journalism club, you idiots. I mean, my high school, both of the ones I went to, had such clubs and also classes around those pursuits, which were usually responsible for such. A digital research club, I would think, would be more along the lines of the school's tech support. He also cites a list of specific incidents of them goofing off. How did you get those surveillance images? Do you seriously have security cameras in every clubhouse room? Because I'm pretty sure that's freaking illegal and not eligible for you to condemn, as you do not control their time. And of course, a massive internet usage bill. As this was before the time of unlimited X for flat fee phone and internet, this is not a good thing, but can actually be accounted to Kubota regularly communicating with the team through their club PC, which lacks any form of webcam on either side to generate pictures. I know this was the 90s, but webcams did exist back then. However, Shun's more concerned over a friend of his that goes to another school, who contacted him concerning, well, his own Digiken turning into the Children of the Corn. Actually, it's a plot to use the intelligence of these students to map out the designs for a super weapon.
That just raises further questions.
Such as, why didn't they try and do this with actual scientists? You know, those who have knowledge and not just intellect. You've done such before, why not again? Why a small school? Why not a college? Hey, how about pay a bunch of people to legitimately be parts of a think tank, so there's less suspicion by people going to a job, instead of the obvious abnormalities that would be found amongst peers? Well, the answer is, shut up, it's a TV show. Granted, the episode is framed as more of a mystery and mind game to mediate such. Who is the one Owl Najiri is possessing to inflict this upon them? And can Shun avoid the same fate? Adding to the production of this device. The rest of the team end up tracking Shun down as he shirks the makeup duties he'd been assigned, becoming involved, and actually assisting in their own way to Shun's outsmarting of the monster. Episode 16 is the first episode of Sentai written by the infamous Yasuko Kobayashi, after years of being stuck on the Metal Hero shows, and before she hit it big with Ginga Man and Time Ranger, or started her streak of intentionally insulting the ideology of Shotari Shinomori. But it's easy to see from this episode why even early in her career, she would incessantly be tapped by production companies for her time. The Moth Najire spreads a dust over Tokyo, not seeming to do anything, and retreating after likewise dusting the Megaranger. It's after this that it's revealed the dust is a slow-acting poison, indicated by markings found in the skin that is going to end up being lethal as it replicates. INET is going to do their best to work on a cure, but it's going to prove fatal within a day, and much of that time has already expired. Playing into Kubota's worries, he's led these kids to their deaths. What sells this episode is the emotional, human reaction by the cast, set off by Kenta frantically gathering as many poison antidotes as he can, only to be insulted by Shun, as obviously such a toxin wouldn't be curable from common means, which leads to them lamenting they've done nothing with their lives. The inevitability of their mortality shoved straight in their face when most people that young, as I've discussed in reviews previously, like in my massive Dot Hack retrospective, have not conceptualized the weight and meaning of death, or don't consider their life so easily snuffed out.
So the question becomes, what would you do on the last day of your life?
Koichiro and Chisato try to fight it, contribute some way to Kubota's investigation so they might cheat death. For Shun, it's to try and leave a lasting impact with one's life and dream, creating and displaying several abstract CGI images. For Kenta, it's to have a good last meal, and I honestly can't fault him for that. For Miku, it's sadly to go on an impulsive shopping spree which wastes her allowance. I say sadly because it's a recurring issue to have little nuanced insight into her character, culminating in her grabbing a wedding dress. I've not been mentioning it, but Miku is crushing heavily on Shun, who's unaware of it, and there's something of a mutual attraction between Koichiro and Chisato neither consciously acknowledges. But in this case, if Miku's going out, she wants to try and do it Romeo and Juliet style, for lack of a better simile. But as these three are out, they are constantly reminded they are not the only ones going to drop dead. They see people they know bear the marks as well, but no one aside from them knows the coming impact of Moth Nagiri's actions, as revealing such would have only caused panic and anarchy. So the dying around them are instead living their lives, and they realize it can't end like this. It won't. Not to them, not to any of the others afflicted, because they will not let it happen. When Moth Nagire reappears, the team attacks him hard and fast, and realize its immunity to the poisons may lead to a cure, getting part of it for analysis. And as this is a TV show, a proper antidote is quickly manufactured and distributed, not at the last minute, but with an hour and 30 to spare, thanks to the five fighting through the pain to keep the moth from spreading any more of the poison. Of course, its threat isn't negated as it grows giant, simply because the larger size can allow the spreading of more of the toxic spores. But Galaxy Maker removes that threat by taking it into space to destroy it, and it can do that as it's a robot made from a spaceship. Play the clip!
Just this once! Everybody lives!
As a breather is needed after such an incident, time skips ahead to the team's senior class field trip, and a Miku-centered episode, opening with her own brand of overexcited obnoxiousness to the chagrin of the others. Though this is slapstick I can get behind. Less so is Miku's callous disregard for safety when handling obviously expensive camera technology, which leads to Chisato getting drenched to avoid such. Eventually these acts begin culminating in everybody being fed up with Miku, not because she's acting differently than she always does, but because more of the less tolerable elements of her personality keep coming to the forefront in such a short span of time.
And let's face it, anyone can have an off day where they accidentally piss everybody off.
Hit it, Murphy! To be fair, with how their trip was going, they'll probably find more relaxation in beating up the monster of the week than in the vacation itself.
I've had vacations like that.
However, Toad Najire's plot requires the assistance of Bibi Devi to get started. And Bibi Devi, since the other three are competent, has to be the incompetent villain. Specifically, in his use of a pair of guns that cause evolutionary and developmental effects, one enhancing, the other reversing, which are meant to be the weapons of the Kaijin. So naturally, since Miku's screwing up stuff at the beginning of the episode, she's the one hit with the evolution gun to give a greater contrast to before and after. This change is first indicated by a shift in hairstyle, and I honestly prefer her without the pigtails. While only one Toad Najire is born, the team, led by the super genius Miku, makes quick work in forcing it to retreat, mainly by herself. And though they praise her newfound ability, well, it begins to become excessive.
IQ does not work that way!
the love of sanity, they even sound the same! But the strain of her enhanced brain starts taking its toll on her, in the form of mind-splitting headaches, that warrants the others take actions to get the devolution gun to return her to normal, which Miku honestly doesn't want, hating how she normally is. But what she needs to be reminded of, and why I didn't like that earlier episode that wasted showcasing what she can do, is she can strive to be like she is now without changing who she is or putting her health at risk. This, actually, becomes part of her extremely mild character arc for the series. So, yeah, despite treasuring her sudden genius, she gives it up to help her friends, who are struggling against the Toad, ending with her return to normal. But this isn't the only plot that takes place while they're out on vacation.
Unfortunately, it's a heavy-handed environmentalism episode.
In the Nasu Highlands, a group of teenagers drop some garbage in a forest, and we see why I hate this episode. This kid. This fucking kid is a spiritual guardian of the forest, and is a complete and utter asshole. What gives the spirit the power to protect the forest is a type of energy the Neji wish to obtain and harness, and sends the mushroom Nijire to clear the area for them.
No, that's the fire flower. The mushroom makes you into a giant.
But because the Megaranger are in the area, they intercede, and the entity attacks them all for the inexcusable, unforgivable crime of littering.
And yet, this brat wasn't as hostile to the thing they were stopping from burning the forest down.
Though for a breather between my eviscerations of this idiot, I give you the greatest out of context line in the series.
I'm beginning to understand why this series was so well received.
But back to the spirit brat, it appears before Koichiro and tells him this.
Their enemy was burning down your forest, you asshole.
In truth, the area was being surveyed by INET to build a small transmission relay. Their digitizers are simply a receiver for the megasuits that are transported to them from... I have no idea. But with a series of relays, it would strengthen the connection and neutralize space warps, which would render the team unable to transform, and a bunch of other passive combat advantages that would, all things considered, make it that much better for everyone's survival.
The decision about this is, they hadn't even finalized any decision to make this the site for the relay. The survey was to see if this location was even viable. And by law, and I checked this, would be followed by environmental impact surveys and a number of other screenings and projects to minimize any damage. And as this would be a remote facility, it wouldn't even have much chance for any damage, as it would most likely be automated or operated by, one guy. It's a relay tower. You're not building an entire real estate district. It's just something that sits there affecting nothing. Hell, the monster of the week this freaking spirit ignored for most of the episode did more damage of the long-term nature than the tower would have. The spirit wrecking the car did more long-term damage to his own home than the tower would have.
He's attacking those that are not involved with the decision simply because they were there, even though they were helping him to do his self-appointed job. And he doesn't actually explain his situation or try to talk through it to make Koichiro understand his pleas to not have them damage his home. Instead, he acts like a holier-than-thou ecological terrorist who refuses to justify the absurd overreaction he commits, and thinks the actions of others that don't align with his worldview should not matter.
This sounds familiar for some reason.
Regardless, this is probably the worst episode of Megaranger, because once again with Sentai's environmentalism episodes, a simple to deliver Aesop is completely fucked up. You end up despising the one delivering it far more for his one appearance than Futaro and Kite from Gal Ranger and Wild Force get from their story arcs. This fascist entity's actions, instead of encouraging them to move the site of the relay to an alternate location, makes the entire project be scrapped because the Megarangers just say they don't need it. When they do. And this is all treated as a good thing, even when they're taking severe damage to Galaxy Mega to blatantly avoid fighting anywhere near this forest. It takes this much for the spirit to even consider it might be wrong.
And think about that for a second. This was so bad, it made me ultimately give a bye
to 2 episodes about horrendous interpersonal interaction, which actually impacts people's daily lives. I'm gonna vent my frustrations. We'll be back in a bit with part 3.